Hello, I'm Tanisha. This would be testimony 7. This is a big one because this is something I dealt with my whole life, and it's about rejection. 7 is significant because my numbers are 7 and 8. I was born in 1978, and my birthday numbers are 7878, and God has dealt with me in a lot of 7 8s. And then also, He dealt with me with nines, which my whole family except me is born in September. My whole immediate family, my husband and my 2 boys. So rejection. I grew up. I I was an ugly child, or something. People say, "Oh, you ugly now." I don't care. I don't care what you think. so, um, but the only time I heard anything when I was a child was when big breasted women, I don't know who they was, my grandmother's friends and her family members, and they'd be like, "That's a beautiful little girl right there. Oh, she's just so beautiful." And I would look at them like, what are they talking about? But I appreciated that. But that's the only time when I was a child that I heard that. So I grew up, my mother, um, she was married to my father, and they ended up, she will say she took me from my father. And but So I grew up to a mother who had a mental illness, and that was plagued her. And then I found out where my father lived when I was about 3. He lived on the edge. We lived on the Erta at that time, and he lived on Winona Street by that McDonald's um, off of Clio and something. So I knew where he stayed because we would go that way, and so I would walk there and knock on his door. He was a shop worker, so he probably wasn't ever home. But I knocked on his door when I was little and walked back. Yes, I did what I wanted to do. When people tried to tell me what to do, it didn't work very well. But um, I feared no one for for a long time. So rejection was just something that I grew up with. My mother, she would uh, go to the mental institution. I was a child, so I didn't know what actually was going on with that situation. But sometimes she was there, sometimes she wasn't. But when she came back, she always got us back. Um, so, but in those times when we were with somebody else, we stayed with my grandmother until she died, and then other family members, aunts and uncles and stuff, they took us in. So thank God my family didn't just let us go to the system and things like that. But I didn't understand what love was. I had no idea. I really didn't know until I was about 20, maybe 19, 20. And so rejection was just something I did. I grew up thinking I should be a boy because they got to do everything, because people would come and get the teenage boys, because I it was me and then a lot of boys. So the boys would to go do stuff, and I'm like, man, I wish I was a boy because then I could go do something too. But I would just be helping, sweeping, cleaning up, things like that. All this time, I've talked to God since I was 4. So all this time, yes, I talked to God, but I also dealing with people. It wasn't always a good situation. So rejection just went that way. When I was in college, I tried to meet Christians, and they kind of, I didn't know at the time what was going on, but they kind of rejected me. I dealt with people. My best friend rejected me a couple of times, and so I that was just me. I didn't realize I was rejecting myself for a long time until I had my first son in 2014. I I dealt with the pregnancy on my own. It was fine. I didn't have no problems anyway. Um, God has always been my covering. So I didn't fear anyone. I never had a problem going anywhere by myself. Uh, I've been to Canada, I've been to Mexico by myself. I've driven 48 states by myself. So I feared no one. And even today, my husband's like, that's my job to protect you. I'm like, no, maybe in some cases, but for the most part, don't be afraid of me talking to the dudes. Don't be afraid of me talking to women. Don't be afraid of me talking to anybody. Somebody with a gun. It doesn't matter. I don't fear that because God has been my covering, and He says, "I cover you." But I still walked in rejection. So what I started doing is gambling. Um, that'll be another testimony. But I use that when I'm doing good. That was in 2014. I started gambling then, and I didn't know I was dealing with postpartum depression. I didn't know I was dealing with a lot of stuff that was. So I started gambling, and for almost 10 years, I used gambling as ways to tear myself down. I mean, I had a lot of money doing all this stuff, helping people doing this, had a house, shared my house. I did all kind of stuff before. But when it was just what I was dealing with was internal that I didn't know. And so when I got too high, as high, like I said, imposter syndrome, too high, I'm like, okay, what am I doing up here? I don't deserve to be up here. Who am I? Why am I up here? I mean, all my bills paid, everything, everything's paid, everything except I had a student loan and a house payment. That's all I had. Everything. And so then I would find myself tearing myself down. And that is what I did because I rejected myself. And I would stop gambling and then start again, stop gambling, But and when I stopped, of course, I'm like I'm going good, feeling good, and then I started lying about it and all this other stuff. Started doing all kind of stuff. We'll talk about that. I think it's testimony 11. The Lord gave me a kind of schedule. But I rejected myself so much. Even though when the Lord asked me to marry my husband and all that other stuff, and He's like, I love you and all this other stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, oh you're beautiful, oh yeah, whatever. And it wasn't until this year when God said, Tanisha, look, I can't do anything with you. You sit on my lap, you talk to me, you got husband, I love you, children, I love you, things like that. And you're not able to receive the fullness of my love and everything like that because you rejecting yourself. You don't love yourself. And I looked and I'm like, He's like, look at this. Look. Every time I tried to bless you and show you stuff and think, oh, you tearing yourself. And I was like, wow. I thought I loved myself. And sometimes I did. I was feeling myself. But then I realized, well, who is that? Get on down. So I'll knock myself down. And it was all because years ago He gave me a vision, and I was in the middle of a crowd, and all of a sudden the crowd spread apart and started looking at me, and I'm like, what's going on here? So they're looking at me and following, and as I'm walking, they're still in the circle following me around. And then finally I was like, okay, here's my chance. So I go and try to hide in the crowd. And again, when they realized that I was hiding in the crowd, of course, they spread around, go back around me, and they were following me around again. I'm like, oh, stop. I'm trying to get out of here. I don't want to be on the pedestal. I don't want to be people watching me. I don't want any of that. And that's what and it kept happening in that vision. And the Lord was like, you have rejected yourself. your whole life. I'll talk about when I was a child and the things I did as a child. But that's what I did. And I say this to say, if you don't love yourself, it's time to start learning to love yourself. Look in the mirror. Say, hi, me. I love me. Talk to yourself. Stop beating yourself up about everything. Just, if you need to, get a notebook, write all the crap you did, all the crap other people did, whatever you need to do. Write that stuff down and get rid of it. If you got to do one by one. If you need to apologize, apologize. If you don't, you don't. Don't expect those people that did you wrong to apologize to you. Oh, well, it was happening. You don't even have to bring it up in some cases. Sometimes you do. You're like, I need to talk to that person. That's what I felt. And they get all mad that you even offended and you're alive. Yeah, I am. That's okay. Forgiveness is what needs. I'll have to tell you guys about that one later as well. But that is what needs to be done. God loves each individual person. He created each of us individually. A lot of people, I hear people say, well, if you don't do it, God will choose somebody else. No, he won't. He will not choose anybody else. Yes, if you don't do it, he's going to have to wait. And then he's going to have to find someone that's going to do something similar to what he had you made to do. He told me, if I don't go back and help my family after college, he said, my niece was going to have to do it. And I was like, well, she only a kid. He's like, exactly. You want your family to wait till then? So I had to make a decision. It stops here. It stops here. And if I would have rejected his purpose for me in the beginning, he told me, you would have been crazy and dead. I was like, I would have been dead. He said, no, you wouldn't have been dead, like dead in the ground. You would have been dead in life. So I say this to say this. God loves you. Accept his love. And you have to learn how to love yourself. Don't matter what you look like. Don't matter what you sound like. It don't matter what somebody else said about you. It doesn't matter where you come from. It's where you're going. And the number one place to go is with God. Whether if you are a street sweeper or whether you the king of the castle, it doesn't matter. If that's your call, live it to the fullest. Enjoy it. Because, hey, if the castle ain't clean, that king he got some trouble. All kind of animals and creepy things. So take who you are and live for it, because God said that's who you are. That's God. That's who he made you. And of course, you have to develop a relationship with God. He wants to talk to you. He wants you to come and talk to him. Because he'll show you. He'll show you your book. He'll show you where you're supposed to go. He'll show you who you are and why he put you here. That's why he hates abortions. That's why he hates people hurting children and things like that. That's why he hates a lot of stuff. He hates people hurting each other. He wants us to love each other. How can we love others like ourselves if we don't love ourselves? And a lot of us, we do. We can put it all on somebody else and try, but eventually we're going to fail them too because we don't love ourselves enough. So please, earn your own throne. Know that God loves you and you are here for a purpose. Nobody else can fulfill it. You want your kids to wait on you? Wait for you not to do it? A lot of people got little babies. Well, you gonna do that when you grow up. No, mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or aunt or uncle or whoever you are. Let it stop with you. Identify yourself how God identifies you. And the only way you can do that is with a relationship with him. It's always come back to that. He wants a relationship with each and every one of us. We're inside of him. He loves us all the same. So I don't want this to be any longer. Have a good day. Love yourself. Love God. Love others.